notice. You cannot hold them responsible until you give them notice. What do you think those speed limit signs are out there? They're notice. For all those entities that are subject to those rules and regulations, they're notice that, hey, these are the speed limit signs. If they don't put those signs out there, they cannot hold their entities responsible. Notice is common law. Sovereigns demand. You know, this is something Rice McLeod said, and I really didn't, it really hit home with me, because I used to be in the Canadian Armed Forces, and I remember getting a piece of paper and it had demand written across the top, and I was supposed to go do something, so I went and did whatever it was. But the point is that it never dawned on me what that was all about until Rice McLeod said sovereigns demand, and it's true. And that it further solidified to me the fact that the people of Canada are sovereign. You know, I mean, that was Canadian Armed Forces. And so sovereigns demand. It's not negotiable or a request, it's a demand, and it's now. This is called administrative procedure. It's also common law. It gives notice to your authorities about your assertion and gives them an opportunity to rebut it. It defeats their presumptions, and that is extremely important. The oath of office acceptance, okay, that's the first line in that document, okay? If you look at those documents, you can look at them and you can follow through a lot of these steps, you'll see them. The oath of office acceptance. The oath is all we the people have. You get a copy of their oath or you give them an oath. I give them an oath. I used to get a copy, but that's kind of cumbersome and it takes time, and you know, I don't bother with that anymore. I just give them an oath. And the oath of office document that I give them is in there. The oath of office supersedes everything else. The oath of office is your trump card, because that's what supersedes everything else, and that's where you can get them, by that oath. Equality unto the law is paramount, okay? That's essentially what that does is, there's my brother. I come from a family of rabble-rousers, I got to tell you. My brother, you know, about 5 years ago, he cut up everything he had. Driver's license, everything. Any kind of ID or anything from the government, and cut it up and burned it all. And since then, you know, he's been, one time he was, they charged him, he was doing like 140 clicks, and stopped him and charged him for no driver's license, all sorts of stuff, right? And so then he appeared in their show trial, and they put him in a nut house for 30 days. And so it gave him an opportunity to teach people about the law. Of course, everybody in there was nuts, but they put him in a nut house. And so after 30 days, they wrote a 4-page report and said this guy's not nuts. Essentially, he just thinks differently than the rest of us. So then he went back to court, and they wanted a plea bargain with him, eh? And that's when he said, you threw me in that nut house for 30 days, and now you want a plea bargain with me? I want this case dismissed now. And he turned around and walked out, and the case got dismissed, okay? And so then there's been other times when he gets stopped. One time he got stopped in Red Deer, and they took him down and put him in jail. He spent 5 years in jail off and on, so he knows what it's like there, eh? And so they took him down and put him in jail, and he figured, well, I guess I'll make myself comfortable. First of all, they want to take his fingerprints, eh? And he says, no, you're not taking my fingerprints. And they said, yes, we are. And he said, no, you're not. And they said, yes, we are. And he says, well, I guess you got the guns, so if you want to break these fingers off and go and print them, then you're more than welcome to. But otherwise, no, you're not. And so then they said, follow me. And he was walking down this hallway, and there's a fingerprint room. They walked right on past the fingerprint room and put him in a jail cell. And he was there for 15 minutes, and then he said somebody from upstairs called down and said, get his butt out of here now. And so they kicked him out of there. It's amazing how that works. But and actually, that's pretty well what happens anytime now. Matter of fact, they don't even stop him. He doesn't have a driver's license, and hasn't had one for 5-6 years, and they know it. And in fact, I was showing them how to do this administrative procedure when I was up there. But so, anyways, they don't even mess with them anymore. But the last time they stopped him, they had him in jail again, you know, about 15 minutes, and then they kicked him out of there. And you know, so they just like to play the little games once in a while. So the important thing is the idea of this equality under the law is paramount. The purpose of that is it defeats their thing about throwing people in a nut house, because they like to do that. That's one of their strategies, okay? And essentially what you're saying is, if you're going to throw me in the nut house, then you got to go there too. And competence, incompetence, and representation. Remember, we talked about that already. First of all, they're making you incompetent. They're making legal determinations for you and stuff. That's saying that you're not competent, and they are. And so they cannot accuse you of being a person without representing you. And so that's what those paragraphs in there are talking about, is that you don't have authority to represent me, and if you think you're representing me, you're fired, and I am competent, and you're not. And that's the purpose of that. The copyright. You don't have to do a copyright, but I find it's very powerful. Now, I've never collected on that copyright, but let's face it, they're in commerce, and you can hurt them, okay? And so there's a common law copyright, and I have brought that up in court, and they never, ever, ever want to talk about it, okay? That tells me it's powerful. And again, my commercial liens. You know what I do with my commercial liens? I just trump up all sorts of stuff. That's what they do. Think about it. That's what they do. They just fabricate stuff right out of thin air, right? So do I. I just fabricate. That's how I came up with $1 billion. What do you think? Do you think I'm going to actually come up with $1 billion worth of charges? I just come up with $1 billion worth of something, 100 million for this, and just come down with a list of receivables and send it to them. I mean, that's pretty simple. I mean, certainly you can have, what I'll do is like when I was getting letters from the IRS way back when, I'd circle Glenn W. Fern in all block capital letters, and then I'd say, copyright violation, $10 million, unlawful legal determination, $10 million, and because my copyright says, first of all, it's $10,000 for any use, okay? It's $1 million if it's for profit or gain, and it's always for profit or gain if you think about it. And then it's $10 million if it's for profit or gain more than 3 times in a year. Well, damn, one of their documents might have it 3 or 4 or 5 times in there. And so, man, now you're talking $50, $60 million right off the bat, It doesn't take long to add up at that rate, And so I'll start going cha-ching, 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 circling it and marking it up and saying, and I'll make a photocopy and I'll send them an invoice and all this stuff, eh? And, I'll tell you, where this really works good is like a collection agency or something like that. I'll tell you, you do that with them, and they're gone. I'll tell you, they don't want to talk to you at all. They're gone. And I've done that with other organizations, any commercial organization. They won't even touch you with a 10-foot pole because they know you can collect. These governmental corporations are a little harder, but that's not to say you can't do it. And the key is let's face it, you're going to have to go before one of their corporate commercial courts, and that's tough, and all the rest of it. But what we're going to be talking about is de jure government, and if you can get your de jure government to indict them and convict them, then you got something that's got teeth. Let me tell you, you have no idea the power of that, and we'll be talking about that. But so anyways, the copyright is a major deterrent since they're in business to make a profit. And essentially, I actually did a copyright notice where it's a document that's recorded, and I tell them what the deal is. But what I do now is I don't think that's even necessary, because what you do in your notice and demand right there, you give them notice right there that these are my fees. It's like a menu when you go to a restaurant, okay? If you tell them that these are the fees for using these names, then and then they use it, well, they agreed to the fee. It's like going into a restaurant. They say the hamburger is this price, and you order a hamburger, then you agreed to pay the price. And so, anyways, the copyright is really powerful. There's a common law copyright, and I don't think you even have to do a copyright notice. I think you just, when you put it in a paper and you send it to somebody personally, and you have proof that he's got it, like an officer of the court served it on him and that kind of stuff. I mean, that's extremely powerful. Anyways, if they use the name, it's essentially an offer of contract, and you accept, oh, I accept your offer of contract, here's your invoice. I always make them communicate under penalty of perjury, and that's really useful because they can't communicate under penalty of perjury because they lie all the time, and that just defeats everything they do. And then I let them know that I can hold them and their boss's boss, everybody and their brother up the chain of command personally responsible. And then zip codes, postal codes are martial law jurisdiction, and Title 18, Section 1342 is about fictitious mailing addresses, and I tell them that you intend to be guilty of mail fraud if you use anything but this address I'm giving you. And I'll tell you, yeah, I got to go get my briefcase. But you saw that letter from the U.S. Solicitor General. That's exactly what I told them, and they did it exactly like I told them. Anyways, I make it very clear up front that I'm not interested in being a surety or accommodation party. That's exactly what they're doing, okay? They're getting you to be the surety or accommodation party for their fictitious entity. I don't have a driver's license. Why would I want one of those? There's no such thing as a driver's license under Texas law. Besides, it's only corporations that are required to have one. And if they do not argue, then they've given you permission. The driver's license is color of law. There's no authority to require one. And I don't have one. Strawman might have one, but I don't. Picture ID. I make up my own picture ID. It's up front if you want to look at it. Land titles has a miscellaneous. That's in Canada. I usually record it in at the county recorders, and it works great, and it's no problem. As a matter of fact, I heard that they got Tim Curry kicked the bucket over there in Fort Worth, and now they'll record just about anything over there. I've never heard of that. I don't see why you couldn't do it, but I mean, I'm not sure how you're talking about that. I mean, there's. Yeah, well, I don't see a problem with that. Yeah, again, yeah. I'd have to see exactly what you're trying to do. I mean, a bill of sale is a bill of sale. It's not usually public anyways. You know what I mean? But I will tell you that there's a guy in Canada that did a bill of exchange. And this is kind of interesting because what he did was the bank was trying to seize this vehicle, right? Because he was behind on the payments. And so what he did is he did a bill of exchange with a third party, okay? And he said he figured he had $5,000 worth of equity in the vehicle, and the vehicle was worth, he figured the bank owed the bank, about $4,000 or something like that. You see what I'm saying? So anyways, he did a bill of exchange for $5,000 worth of labor, where it says that I hereby, in exchange for $5,000 worth of labor, I grant you all of my legal and equitable title in this vehicle, okay? And what happened is the guy that did the labor was supposed to have done the labor. He was ready to go down to the bank and pay $4,000 and pay it off. You see what I'm saying? Anyways, he went down to the bank, showed him the bill of exchange, and said, I need to know what your interest is in this vehicle, right? Makes sense. Wants to know how much is owed on it. You see what I'm saying? The labor is done, and I need to know what your interest is in this vehicle. And so the bank looked at it and they said, come back and, can you come back in half an hour? And he said, sure. So he went, had a coffee, came back in half an hour, and the bank signed the vehicle over to him. Yeah. Yeah. Now that's Canada. I'm not sure how that would work here. That's how they did it in Canada. And but see, there's legal and equitable title, right? He had legal title, but the bank had equitable title. But what essentially happened, in my opinion, and what he thought too, was that because you're exchanging something real for something real, you're taking it out of the matrix. You see what I'm saying? And he said the registration on the vehicle was completely different when that happened too. And because you're exchanging something real for something real, it essentially takes it out of the matrix. When you're paying for it with commercial paper, then it's in the matrix. You see what I'm saying? Because it's